You wake with the taste of dust and resin on your tongue. Candle smoke clings to your throat, and your fingers ache from hours of scratching symbols into papyrus. The chamber is narrow and low, its walls carved with jackal-headed gods and gold-leaf prayers that promise an eternity the priests know is a lie. Behind you, on a black stone slab, a freshly embalmed corpse watches with empty sockets as you work. This is Khemri. Khemri, the city of 1,000 tombs, where the living are outnumbered by the dead even before they die. You are a scribe of the mortuary cult, ink-stained and half-starved, but every mark you make tonight is for him, for the high priest who should have been king, Nagash. His name is never spoken aloud in this chamber. The other acolytes call him only the Great One, but you have copied his name more times than you can count, hidden in spells that twist like snakes around the margins of funerary texts. You have watched his shadow fall across the pages, long and sharp as a blade, while your heart stutters like a trapped bird. You are alone now, or you should be. The corpse on the slab is a prince who angered the wrong faction at court. You wrote his genealogy yourself as they opened his veins and drained his blood. He should be quiet. No breath, no pulse, no thought. So why does the air tremble every time you dip your reed in ink? Why does the resin on his skin crackle like something beneath it is trying to move? Outside, the city is a muffled rumor. Distant drums, the hiss of desert wind through the necropolis, the grind of stone as another tomb is sealed. Down here, beneath the royal pyramid, there is only the scrape of your reed, the drip of oil from the lamp, and the nearly inaudible whisper of cloth against stone from the slab behind you. You tell yourself it is nothing, lack of sleep, too much incense. You bend lower over the papyrus as your master commanded. Write exactly what I dictated. You remember his voice, the way you remember a fever. Slow, cold, leaving you weaker each time it passes through you. He stands taller than any man in Khemri, robed in shadow and gold, with eyes that catch the lamplight and hold it like coins at the bottom of a well. When he looks at you, you feel as if he is measuring not your body, but the space your soul occupies. Write, little scribe. The dead are waiting. Your hand obeys even as your mind recoils. Line after line of symbols spill from your reed. Invocations to gods whose statues crack in their own temples. Formula that do not belong in any funeral rite you have ever learned. Words that bend around the idea of death instead of bowing to it. Behind you, the corpse draws a breath it does not need. The sound is shallow, papery, like air forced through dried reeds. Your reed freezes above the page. Ink beads at its tip and falls, a single black tear on the papyrus. You do not turn around, not yet. You stare at the fresh blot of ink, watching it spread into the fibers, and you understand, dimly, terribly, that you have just crossed a line. There are prayers for the dead, and there are spells for the living, and then there are the words your master gave you tonight, which belong to something else entirely. Something that is not content with kings and tombs. Something that wants the world. Before we go any further into the deserts of dead kings, tell me in the comments whose side you would take when the end times come. Nagash, the Tomb Kings, or the living. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe so you do not miss the next chapter. You turn, slowly, as if any sudden movement might invite the corpse to move again. You face the slab. The prince lies where you left him, linen tight, skin shining with resin, chest still, jaw bound shut. Yet the air around him is wrong, Lamplight bends over his body like heat over stone. Symbols you inked on his shroud, meant as simple blessings, seem to twist when you try to read them. Your gaze slides away as if from an open wound. You heard it. The voice from the doorway freezes your blood. You do not need to look to know who stands there, but you do. The chamber is colder. Incense splits into the dry scents of old stone and metal and long-sealed dust. Nagash fills the entrance, tall enough that his headdress brushes carved vultures. Gold and black lacquer catch the light in thin lines. His eyes are deep in shadow, but you feel them pressing on your chest. You drop to your knees before thought can catch up. "My great one," you whisper, forehead on cool stone. I wrote every word. I know. Bare feet step past you. The hem of his robe whispers like sand over bone. He stops beside the slab. For a moment, there is only the faint pop of cooling resin. Then he speaks, not to you, but to the corpse. "Rise." There is no shouted god name, no sweeping gesture, only that one quiet word. For a heartbeat, nothing happens. Then the prince's chest jerks. Linen shivers over dead ribs. His spine arches, crackling, and his bound head rolls as if searching for a breath that will never come. The air dries in your throat. Incense burned away to the taste of dust. He sits up. You scramble backward until your shoulders hit carved stone. Your heart hammers so hard you taste iron. The prince's eyes are still sewn shut, but his head tilts toward you, following the ragged sound of your breath. "Nah, not possible," you hear yourself say. "His heart was taken. The blood. Do not insult me by quoting priests." Nagash's voice is mild, and that is worse than anger. He lays his hand on the mummy's shoulder. Linen smokes under his fingers. "Do you see now, little scribe? The gods of Khemri are dead names on cracked stone. Flesh does not obey them. It obeys will." He lifts his hand and gestures toward you. The corpse slides its legs from the slab, stands with the stiffness of a puppet on strings, and walks. Linen rasps on stone. It comes straight toward you, head tilted, as if scenting your fear through stitches and resin. You cannot move. You cannot even raise your arms. "Look at him," Nagash says. "He was a prince. He thought the world would bow for another 50 years. Now he belongs to me, as will everything beneath this sky." The mummy stops within reach. You can smell the oils in its wrappings, sweet and sharp over the dry thing beneath. Its sewn mouth strains as if trying to scream. "Why show me?" you whisper. At last, Nagash turns his gaze fully on you. "Because you write," he says. "Because you listen." The others chatter and clutch their prayers. You understand that words are tools. It is time you saw what tools can build. He flicks his fingers. The corpse crumples back onto the slab, like an empty robe. Whatever force held it upright is gone. "Come." You follow. You follow him through corridors veined with gold, down stairways that spiral instead of rise, into tunnels where the air tastes of metal and old incense. Torches burn with thin green flame that gives no warmth. Each step carries you further from the chanting halls of Khemri, deeper into a part of the necropolis no priest has ever named in your hearing. The sound starts as pressure in your bones. Thump, thump. Not a drum, not a heart. Something older. You feel it before you hear it. A slow beat sliding through the stone into your teeth. The passage widens, and your world opens into a cavern that should not exist beneath the city. The roof is lost in darkness. Columns carved like stacked skulls flank a chasm, and at its center, swallowing the torchlight, rises an unfinished mass of black stone, so huge it makes Nagash look small. A pyramid, but wrong. Its sides are too steep, its angles too sharp, as if it were built to cut the sky. Each block is veined with dull green threads that pulse in time with the buried beat. Slave lines crawl over its flanks like ants, tiny lanterns flickering as they hold stone and drag chains. The priests build tombs, Nagash says. His voice rolls across the cavern, and the slaves do not look up. Small cages for small souls. This will be different. He walks to the edge of the stone ledge, and you stand a pace behind him because there is nowhere else to stand. The drop is sheer. The floor below is a forest of cranes and scaffolds and carved blocks waiting for their place in the dark machine. This world bleeds power with every death, he continues. Every breath wasted on idols and river spirits that do not listen. Souls scatter. Strength scatters. That era is over. He looks back at you, gaze sharp in the strobing green light. Write what you see, little scribe. Remember this. When the Black Pyramid stands complete, there will be no waste. Through it, I will draw every whisper of death, every shiver of fear, every ending, and bind them to my will. You cannot imagine such a thing, and yet you can almost feel it. A future where every burial and murder and sacrifice is just another stone laid in this impossible structure. And me, you ask, before you can stop yourself. What am I in this? His smile is a small, cold thing. You will be my witness, he says, my record. You will stand at the moment the old world stops breathing and put it into words. You swallow. And if I fail you, he turns back toward the abyss. Then you will be forgotten, he says, scattered to the sands with all the other wasted souls of Nehekhara. He steps closer to the edge, then gestures for you to join him. But I have not chosen you to fail. The ledge is narrow. The thrum in the stone makes your feet unsteady. Far below, the workers look like insects, their voices a faint buzz under the endless beat. Look down, Nagash says quietly. Tell me what you see. You lean forward. Torches, scaffolds, chains. The shimmer of green in the stone. Tiny figures hauling blocks. The pulse in the rock beneath your toes. You open your mouth to answer. A hand touches the center of your back. Just enough force to unmake your balance. The world tilts. Stone drops away. Air tears at your throat. For a heartbeat, you understand. He did not say, if you fail, you die. He said, if you fail, you are forgotten. You do not have time to scream. Scaffolding rushes up in a jangle of wood and metal. Something hits your side. Something else breaks under your ribs. You glimpse one last slice of the cavern spinning past. Torches, skull columns, the black slope of the half-made pyramid. Then impact takes your sight. Sound turns to a long, receding roar. For an instant, there is only pain, bright and total. Then even that goes out. Darkness. No breath, no heartbeat, no body. You float in a place where there is nothing to touch, nothing to see. Only a thin, cold thread running back and back into the depths. You follow it because there is nowhere else to go. Your eyes open. You lie, twisted on broken planks at the base of the pit, staring up at the ledge far above. Nagash stands there, a small dark shape at the brink, robes stirring in a wind you cannot feel. He raises one hand in a gesture you recognize now, a simple claim. The thrum in the stone answers. You try to move and feel the distance between body and self, like a crack in the world. Somewhere above the pain, another realization blooms. You died. You know you died. But something would not let you go. You will not be wasted, his voice says, inside your skull and all around you at once. You will watch. You will remember. You will stand at the end. Hands swarm around your broken limbs, dragging you onto a stretcher, pressing cloth to the blood at your mouth. Their shouts are distant, unimportant. The only thing that matters is the invisible hook sunk into your soul, and the man on the ledge, and the pyramid rising slowly toward a sky it was built to cut. You wake to music and the smell of blood buried under perfume. Silk rustles above you. When you open your eyes, you are not staring at skull-carved columns or the black pyramid's flank. Painted ceilings loom overhead, lanterns sway, and drapes breathe in a warm river breeze. A woman laughs nearby, low and amused. The sound slides under your skin like a knife. You try to sit up, and pain blooms everywhere. Your ribs remember the fall. Your legs remember the shattering. Memory returns in fragments. The ledge, Nagash's hand, empty air, scaffolds rushing up, impact, darkness, and the cold hook that would not let you drift. You lie on a couch of cushions instead of boards. Your chest rises and falls. Your limbs are wrapped in clean bandages. Someone has mended you, but not as mortal healers mend. You can feel other hands in your flesh, stitching you tighter to your own bones. Do not struggle, a voice says. You are still interesting. You turn your head. A woman reclines on a couch opposite yours. Her skin is pale stone, her hair a black river over silk. Jewels burn at her throat and wrists. She holds a cup of dark liquid, and when she smiles, you see the points of her teeth. Welcome to Lahmia, she says. City of Queens. The name jolts you. You have copied maps of Nehekhara. Lahmia is a jeweled court on the river, famous for beauty and whispers. You were meant to die in Khemri's shadows, not wake here. What am I doing here? You whisper. Bleeding on my cushions, she says lightly. But more than that. My servants found you half dead under the desert, clinging to a life you should not have. The taste of you is wrong, old, like wine left too long in a tomb. Her eyes narrow. Who laid claim to you, little scribe? The word cuts. My master, you say, before caution can stop you. The high priest in Khemri, the great one. Ah. She swirls the cup. The liquid is thick and red. The necromancer prince. They whisper he built something beneath his city. They whisper he would be king beyond death. She leans forward. Tell me what he is doing. You feel Nagash's will like a brand behind your eyes. Even here, you remember his promise. You will watch. You will remember. You will stand at the end. He never said you would speak. I serve him, you say carefully. I write what he dictates. I am not told why. Her expression cools. A pity, she murmurs. I hoped you would be more informative. She rises. Only then do you notice the man at her feet, crumpled on the tiles, like discarded cloth. Skin gray, eyes staring at nothing. There is no blood on the floor. Do not look so shocked, she says. Your master plays with souls. I play with blood. We are cousins, perhaps. She crosses to an iron-bound chest. When she opens it, cold air spills out. Symbols etched into the metal flicker with sickly green light. You know that glow. She lifts something from the chest and brings it to the lamplight. A book bound in cracked black leather, edges stained darker than age. Chains cross its cover. Beneath them, stamped into the hide, is a sigil you have inked 100 times beside your master's secret work. One of the books of Nagash. Your mouth goes dry. You know the shape of those pages. You helped fill some of them. hand guided by words you barely understood. To see one here, in this woman's grasp, far from the cavern and the pyramid, is like seeing your master's hand reach through the desert. He thinks he hides his treasures, she murmurs, stroking the cover. But words travel. Pages are copied. A servant carries a scroll he should not. A caravan is misplaced. Sooner or later, everything worth having finds its way to Lahmia. She looks back at you, eyes bright with hunger and something colder. Tell me, scribe, when you wrote for him, did you ever wonder what might happen if someone improved on his work? Improved. The word lands like a stone. You imagine the rites you copied, twisted toward hunger instead of dominion, toward private indulgence instead of the vast design Nagash described. You should not touch that, you say hoarsely. She smiles, and this time it shows too many teeth. Oh, little one, she says, it has already touched me. For a heartbeat, you see her as Nagash would. Not a queen, not a beauty, but an infection. His clean, cold death magic soured into something selfish and red. A miscalculation he would not forgive. The book pulses once in her hands, a slow throb of green that answers the phantom beat you still feel in your bones from the pyramid's heart. The sensation crawls up your spine. In the back of your skull, beneath your own thoughts, you sense a tension, distant, vast, and suddenly aware. He knows, even here, in a river city he does not rule. Your master's work has changed shape without his consent. And somewhere far beneath Khemri, the unfinished Black Pyramid continues to rise, stone by stone, keeping count. Night falls over Lahmia like velvet dipped in blood. The palace windows glow with lanterns and laughter, but beneath the music, you sense something hungrier, pacing behind every silk curtain. Servants glide by without meeting your eyes. None of them look entirely alive. None look entirely dead. Every step you take echoes too loudly in the marble halls, as if the palace itself is listening. The queen leads you through a long colonnade toward a balcony overlooking the river. Her scent, sweet wine and cold stone, clings to the warm air. She does not speak, but you feel the weight of her thoughts pressed against your own mind, testing for cracks. You taste of him, she says at last, the necromancer prince. His mark sits behind your eyes like a shadow. She touches your cheek with a fingertip, colder than river water. He thinks he owns you. Tell me, does he? You cannot lie. Yes. Her expression tightens only for a heartbeat. Then let us see how far his reach goes. She lifts the stolen book. Chains rattle softly as she opens it. The pages glow faintly, green pulsing through the ink, like blood beating through a vein. Runes crawl at the edges of your vision. You smell cold stone and the dust of tombs far from this jeweled city. She begins to read, not chanting, reading, as if the words were merely court poetry instead of the architecture of death. Her voice is smooth, dripping with amusement, but the book does not find her amusing. The air stiffens, the hair on your arms rises, lantern flames gutter sideways. Something old and precise inside the text rejects her twisting of its intent. You feel the sting behind your eyes again. The invisible hook. He feels this. Far beneath Khemri, in the cavern where the Black Pyramid rises, something turns its attention toward Lahmia. A vast awareness brushes your mind like a cold wind over a graveyard. It does not speak. It does not need to. You sense only two words. Not yours. The queen reads louder. The river darkens. A fog forms at the balcony's edge, thick as ink. From within it you hear whispers, thirsting, eager, ancient. Her court gathers behind her, painted nobles, jeweled courtiers, faces too smooth, eyes too bright. Some watch you with curiosity, others with hunger. You see, she purrs. Blood moves faster than dust. His art is slow. Mine is alive. The fog curls into shapes, half-formed spirits. Pulled from somewhere distant, they drift over the balcony rail. Mouths open in silent screams. You smell resin, embalming salts, cracked bone. You recognize the scent from Khemri's catacombs. These are not her spirits, they are his. The queen falters, just slightly, but enough. The book snaps shut on its own. The chains scrape. The green light vanishes like a breath extinguished. The balcony trembles. Somewhere deep beneath the palace, you hear a sound like stone, grinding against stone, as if something buried is shifting in its sleep. What did you do? She hisses. You realize the truth at the same moment she does. You did nothing. Your presence alone, your soul tethered to Nagash's will, allowed his art to slip through her fingers. You are a conduit, a flaw in her plan. He is coming for this, you say quietly, because the pressure in your skull grows sharper with every heartbeat. He knows the book is here. He knows you touched it. Her eyes burn with rage and fear. Then we must be ready. She signals her guards. They move with unnatural speed, forming a circle around you. Their armor creaks like bone. Their eyes shine in the torchlight. You will help me, she says, voice cold as moonlight. If your master sends his dead armies toward Lahmia, you will tell me everything you know of his pyramid, his spells, his rituals. You will give me every advantage. Do this, and I will let you live. Live. You almost laugh. You died once already. You feel the fracture where your soul nearly slipped free. You feel the invisible hook that dragged you back. You do not live in any way she understands. I cannot betray him, you say, even if I wish to. Then you will be unmade, she snaps. A guard grips your arm. His fingers are cold metal over colder flesh. You do not resist. The hook behind your eyes tightens. You feel the distant pulse of the pyramid. Thump, thump, each beat stronger than the last. The queen opens the book again, this time with fury. If he wants you, let him come, she snarls. I have tasted his power. I will taste more. Green fire lashes from the pages. The world explodes into light and noise and a rush of wind that drags the breath from your lungs. You hear shouting, guards, servants, cracking stone. But all of it spins away as the hook pulls taut. Your vision turns black at the edges. Not the darkness of fainting, the darkness of being claimed. You fall, not as you fell from the ledge, not through air and scaffolds, but through a space without walls or sound. The queen's palace vanishes. The river's music vanishes. You drift in a void, cut only by one faint rhythmic pulse. Thump, thump, the heartbeat of the pyramid. Something waits for you in that darkness. Something patient, inevitable, and furious. He is waking. He is coming, and he is not alone. You are nowhere. No river breeze, no palace lanterns, only blackness and the thin pull behind your eyes, dragging you through a space of distant echoes. Thump, thump. The sound comes from everywhere at once, slow and patient. You know it. You felt it under Khemri, beneath the half-made pyramid. It has grown louder. You are being reeled back. The darkness thins. You stand on cold stone. Your chest does not rise. Your heart does not beat. Your hands are pale and faint, as if your flesh is only a memory. You are in the cavern again. The roof drowns in shadow. Skull-carved columns loom. But the pyramid has changed. Once a jagged skeleton, now its sides are smooth and sheer, every block locked in place. Green veins blaze in the stone. The apex spears toward the unseen ceiling, drinking the dark. It is finished. At its base, like ants before a mountain, stand armies, skeletal warriors in tight ranks, robed priests with staffs raised, chariots pulled by bone horses, and between them, the living, men and women of Nehekhara, gaunt and chained, eyes wide with terror. On the highest tier, at the edge of a broad platform, stands Nagash. He is larger than you remember, or the place makes him so. The crown on his brow burns. Around him kneel his chosen priests, skin scarred in patterns you inked. Nehekhara bleeds, he says, voice deep enough to vibrate in bone. Kings rise and fall. The river recedes. The sands take all. The gods do nothing. They are stone and silence. No more. Nagash lifts his staff. The tip glows, a point of green so bright it hurts your eyes. Light races down the staff, across his arms, into the stones beneath his feet. The pyramid answers with a heavier thump. Veins flare along its sides, spears of radiance shooting into columns and bedrock. The hook in your soul snaps taut. He begins to speak. These are not the quiet commands he used on a corpse. These are the other words, the ones you copied in secret, ink trembling. Each syllable drops like a stone into unseen depths. The air thickens. Torches gutter. The living begin to scream. You do not hear the language with your ears. You feel it. Each word grapples with the rules of the world and twists them. Life, once flowing from birth to death, turns and runs down new channels. The first to fall are the chained. They drop like cut sheaves, mouths open in soundless agony. Their souls rip loose in a rush you can see. Pale shapes staring from flesh, dragged upward toward the apex. You feel each as heat along your tether. Dozens, hundreds, thousands, until the flood is a single blinding stream. The land answers. Fields shrivel, wells dry, streets fill with bodies that do not yet know they are dead. In a breath, Nehekhara dies. Kings in sealed tombs awaken too late. Preserved bodies stir behind stone they cannot break. Souls bound to crowns and cartouches howl as the current tears past. Nagash laughs, a short, satisfied sound. All death to me, he says, and the flood obeys. For an instant, you are part of everything. The terror of a child clutching a broken toy. The despair of a mother reaching for a son already gone. The rage of a king watching his city fall. All of it sluices through you into the pyramid, toward the figure on its peak. You swell with borrowed agony. If you had lungs, you would scream. If you had a heart, it would burst. But you're only a hook, a measure, a piece of his equation, and he will not let you break. Then something shifts. A new presence enters the stream, sharp and gnawing, stinking of warpstone and rat. You see tunnels, riddling the rock beneath the cavern, hunched shapes scurrying, beady eyes gleaming as clawed hands pour shimmering green stones into hidden channels. Skaven. The current buckles, instead of flowing cleanly into Nagash and the pyramid. Death magic snarls and twists. Some still reaches him, some spills out, washing over tombs and cities in wild, uncontrolled waves. You feel it hit the royal necropolis like a storm. Kings who should have slept under his hand rise half-bound, their will not wholly his. Their hatred spikes through the torrent like shards of glass. They see the ruin of their kingdoms and fix their rage on one name. Nagash. The ritual still roars, still drags souls upward, still kills Nehekhara, But it is no longer perfect. On the pyramid's peak, Nagash staggers. For the first time since you met him, you see strain. The staff trembles in his grasp. The glow around him flickers as competing currents tear at his frame. Death from the land, warp taint from the tunnels, hatred from the newborn kings. In the confusion, something else moves. Far below, a lone figure climbs, hands slick with blood not his own, eyes wild. He carries a sword and a hatred to match any king's. You know his name from story scrolls, whispered even in Khemri. Alcadizaar, last great king of Nehekhara. He is coming for your master. You wake in darkness, no breath, no heartbeat, no body, only memory, the pyramid blazing, a king's sword in Nagash's chest, Skaven tunnels splitting the earth, a continent screaming as it died. You hang there, a moment, a century, there is no way to tell. Then another voice cuts through, rough and low. Not yet. Will closes on you like a hand. You are dragged along an invisible line, buried deep in whatever you have become. The dark thins. You wake on cold stone. Your chest rises in a slow, uncertain breath. Lamps burn in the corners of a low chamber. The air tastes of dust and incense. The ceiling is painted with blue and gold stars, half flaked away. The central figure, a tall crowned shape you know should be Nagash, has had its face hacked out. Good, a voice says. You remember how to breathe. A gaunt man sits beside your slab, hands on a staff, skin like old leather, eyes like embers. Gold and bone charms hang at his throat, scratched with sigils of the mortuary cult, and marks you recognize from Nagash's private work. Arkhan, you whisper. He inclines his head. You remember more than breath. You push yourself upright. Bandages tug at your skin. Your limbs feel wrong, borrowed. The tomb walls are carved with scenes from Nehekhara's history. Pyramids rising, armies marching, priests weighing hearts. Wherever Nagash should stand, the stone is gouged away. What happened, you ask? The ritual, the pyramid. My lord, fell, Arkhan says. Alcadizaar's blade, Skaven beneath his feet. Kings who would rather see their land die than kneel. His voice does not rise. The black pyramid cracked its chains. The magic scattered. Nehekhara rotted where it stood. You feel an ache where the hook used to sit behind your eyes, the phantom pull of a tether stretched to breaking. And him, cut apart, Arkhan says. Paraded, stolen, hidden. His head taken as a trophy. His hand smuggled away, his heart lost, his eyes narrow, but not gone. He cannot be gone. You know that, or you would not be here. You remember the void that would not let you drift, the hand that closed on your soul even after his body fell. You nod. Arkhan stands and crosses to a stone table. On it lies a length of blackened bone, a scrap of scorched armor, a broken crowned spike, a few teeth. Each is wrapped in linen, covered in tight script. I have spent longer than empires gathering these, he says. Every fool who thought he owned a piece of the great necromancer learned otherwise. You realize this is no simple tomb. The floor is carved with circles and sigils, lines of power crossing like a web. Fresh glyphs lace through the reliefs, turning the story of Nagash's rise and fall into the frame of a spell. Why am I here, you ask? I am a scribe. I hold no rank. Arkhan looks back at you. You were chosen, he says. He tied your soul to his work. When Nehekhara died and the first ritual broke, you did not scatter. You watched. You remember. He taps your forehead. You carry the pattern of his failure. I will not let that knowledge rot. Lahmia's queen flashes through your mind. The stolen book, the chained dying in their thousands, the moment the warpstone tunnels bent the current sideways, the instant Alcadizaar's blade struck. I cannot cast for you, you say. I cannot fight. I do not need another priest, Arkhan replies. I need a ledger, a witness who has felt his power break once and will know when it comes close to breaking again. When I call him back, I must know which threads to pull tighter and which to cut. He brushes his fingertips over the blackened bone. For a heartbeat, the lamps dim. The living thing Nagash is a tale already told, he murmurs. They build empires on his grave. Let them. Time is theirs to waste. Time is ours to use. Silence presses at the edges of the tomb. Only the faint shudder of wind far above and the slow settling of stone. How long will this take, you ask? As long as it must. Arkhan's smile is small. We are not alive anymore. Rivers mean nothing to us. We will sit at the bottom and watch them change their course. He gestures to the carvings, the sigils, the fragments. Sleep when you must. Wake when I call. When someone speaks his name, with enough fear or hatred to stir the dust, I will drag you up to watch. You will see how the world twists itself around the absence of Nagash. You will remember every turn. And when the time comes, you will stand with him when he ends what is left. You lie back slowly, eyes tracing the hacked-out face on the ceiling one last time. Once, you thought the story of the world belonged to kings and gods. Now you understand. It belongs to the hand that writes its ending. You close your eyes. The darkness that takes you is not sleep. It is the long, dry dark of a tomb, filled with the faint echo of a heartbeat that has not yet started again, and the promise that, when it does, you will be there to witness the first beat. Time dissolves. Years pass, like drifting sand. The tomb is your world. Stone, dust, the faint lantern glow of Arkhan's tireless work. Sometimes you wake to see him hunched over fragments of bone, ink-stained fingers moving in tight circles as he redraws sigils you once wrote at Nagash's side. Sometimes you wake because he speaks your master's name aloud, trying to catch the old resonance. Sometimes you wake because something far beyond the desert stirs the tether inside your skull. Tonight you wake because someone speaks the name Nagash with fear. Not here, not in Nehekhara, somewhere across the sea. Arkhan is already at the tomb door, staff in hand. Rise, he says. The old world remembers him. You stand. Your limbs obey with the stiffness of an old corpse. Arkhan gestures, and shadows peel away from the walls, coiling around the two of you. The tomb dissolves. Cold wind hits your face. You stand on a hillside, under a slate sky. Below, you sprawls a town of the old world. Timber houses, thatched roofs, twisting streets filled with torchlight and shouts. Peasants run through the mud, clutching charms and crude icons. Something has frightened them badly. Beyond the town square burns a pyre. At its base stands a priest clutching a tattered scroll. He waves it like a weapon at a bound man kneeling in the mud. Blasphemy, the priest cries. These words are poison. This book of Nagash must be purged. The crowd roars. The scroll flickers in the firelight. Even from this distance, you recognize the arrangement of glyphs, crooked cousins of the ones you once copied by lamplight. Someone here has seen the real thing. Someone has tried to imitate what they should never have touched. Arkhan watches tensely from your side. Imitations, he mutters. Echoes. The wind carries a rumor of his power, and fools try to grasp it. The kneeling man looks up at the priest, defiant, even as the crowd screams for his death. You fear what you do not understand, he shouts. There are truths in those pages, truths that will return with him. The priest slaps him, but the crowd hesitates. The air thickens. The tether behind your eyes pulls hard enough to make you stagger. Arkhan grabs your shoulder. Do you feel that? The pious flames twist unnaturally. Smoke coils upward, spinning into a thin column. Sparks drift sideways instead of rising. A shape begins to form in the dark above the town. Skeletal, immense, crowned. For a heartbeat, you think the people see it too, but they only scream and scatter, blind to the apparition blooming overhead. Arkhan raises his staff, reading the currents. Something is bleeding through, he mutters. Some fragment of his will was left in that scroll. Foolish scribes, copying a single line of a single rite, without understanding the 1,000 pages behind it. Then you hear it, a word, soft, carried on the wind, not spoken in the old world tongue, not shouted by the priest, not muttered by Arkhan. The word comes from the apparition above. Record. Your knees nearly give way. That one word carries the weight of centuries. It carries the same pressure that once pressed on your chest in a lamp-lit chamber beneath a royal pyramid. He sees us, you whisper, even here, even now. Arkhan's fingers tighten on his staff. No, this is not him. It is a memory, power spilled from the great ritual, drifting like smoke. But if this echo can reach us, then the real voice is not far behind. The scroll in the priest's hand bursts into green flame. He yelps and drops it. The bound man cries out as the fire spreads across the muddy ground, burning without heat. Symbols writhe through the flame. Symbols you know intimately, glyphs you wrote at Nagash's dictation. One line glows brighter than the rest. You step closer. The tether yanks you forward until you can see the script clearly, though the humans around you remain unaware of your presence. It is a prophecy. A prophecy written in a style you never used. A chapter you never copied. A page that should not exist. Arkhan leans in beside you. His breath catches. Impossible, he murmurs. You never wrote this. I never wrote this. This is new. The line burns brighter, carving itself into your sight. When the world cracks like a tomb, and the heavens drown in souls, the black pyramid shall rise from earth, and sky will kneel, and he will ascend, and all endings will bend to his hand. The fire snaps shut like a mouth closing. The scroll crumbles into ash. The apparition fades. The storm wind dies. The bound man collapses, unconscious but alive. The crowd flees. The priest kneels, clutching a charm, whispering prayers that will not be answered. Arkhan stands motionless, staring at the ashes. That was no echo, he says finally. Prophecies do not write themselves. Pages do not appear where there were none. Someone, or something, is writing through time. You feel the tether behind your eyes burn with cold fire, not pain, a message. He's reaching, you whisper, through death, through ages, through every scrap of his work. He is reaching for the moment the world cracks. Arkhan turns to you slowly. Then, so must we. The wind picks up again, colder now, and far beneath the earth, you hear the faintest echo of a heartbeat beginning to gather strength. Thump, thump. A sound you have not heard since the day you died. In the tomb beneath Nehekhara, you are stone between moments, called up only when the world brushes against Nagash's name or power. Each time you wake, something has shifted above the sand. Each time you return to darkness, Arkhan adds strokes to the sigils on the floor. Sometimes you rise to see petty necromancers in the old world mutter over graveyards, raising stumbling corpses that fall apart within days. Sometimes you watch border princes barter for forbidden tomes. Sometimes you see priests condemn the wicked art of Nagash while secretly hoarding scraps of his lore. Always, his shadow grows. Tonight, you wake to cold. Not tomb cold, not the familiar dryness of Nehekhara's stone, but a wet chill that bites through your robes and crawls into your empty lungs. You smell snow and pine sap and the iron tang of blood. You stand on a crag, beneath a sky bruised purple and black. Below, a forest stretches to the horizon, branches skeletal under frost. A castle rises from the trees, all jagged towers and needle spires, built like a claw, raking at the stars. Sylvania. Arkhan stands beside you, cloak snapping in the wind. His eyes burn brighter here, twin coals in a skull that remembers it is bare. The old world has learned new tricks, he says. They think they command the dead now. Below, the castle's gate yawns open. An army spills out, skeletons in patchwork mail, hulking shapes stitched from mismatched limbs, black-armored knights on nightmare steeds. Above them, on a balcony of black stone, stands a figure in ornate armor and a tattered cloak, sword raised to the sky. You cannot see his face, but you feel his ambition. Sharp, hungry, convinced the world owes him more than life will grant. He styles himself Master of Death, Arkhan says. He is a footnote. Yet the magic rolling from the castle is not trivial. Green and purple flares rise from its towers, threads of necromancy thrown outward to snare the graveyards of half a province. You feel bones stir in distant earth, coffins split, mausoleums shudder. The air fills with a low murmur, as if the land itself is dragging in a breath of dust. He has read our master's work, Arkhan continues. He has stolen from us as the Queen of Lahmia did. And as with her, what he builds is crooked, personal, small. Small. The word feels absurd when you see the tide of death pouring from the forest, marching beneath a sky torn by unnatural lightning. But compared to the Black Pyramid drinking a kingdom, compared to the prophecy burning on that old world scroll, you understand. This is not the end. This is practice. Why bring me here, you ask? You do not need me to judge his reach. I need you to remember the shape of his failure, Arkhan says. When Nagash returns, he will return into a world that has played at his art for centuries. These children of death will not kneel easily. Their arrogance will be a thread we must cut. As if in answer, the armored lord below throws back his head and laughs. The sound does not reach you, but you see it in his shoulders, in the way he gestures toward the massing dead as if they are an audience. Thorps burn. Villages vanish under the tide. Mortals disappear into the dark. Above it all, the castle looms, pulsing with stolen power. For a heartbeat, you feel another presence brush the edge of your mind. Not Arkhan, not the local lord, but something older. Taste in what has been done in its name. Nagash. It is only a flicker, a probing touch, like a fingertip testing thin ice. But it is enough to make the tether in your skull blaze cold. He is closer. The vision frees. Wind becomes dust. Pine and snow fade to incense and stone. You are back in the tomb, sitting up on your slab, while Arkhan stands in the doorway, staff grounded. You felt it, he says. Yes. He is pulling. Arkhan's voice is flat. Through every corpse raised in his name, every scrap scratched with his sigils, every fool who binds their soul to death, the world has written him a ladder over its own grave. He will climb it. He turns toward the table. The fragments there, bone, crown, scorched iron, glimmer faintly, as if answering a call from far away. "We are nearly there," Arkhan says. "The desert is quiet. The north is loud. Chaos gnaws at the edges of the world, and the dead march in imitation of their true master. All the pieces move." He looks at you, and for the first time since you woke on his slab, you see something like excitement behind the embers of his eyes. "When next you wake," he says, "it will not be for echoes. It will be for him." He extinguishes the lamps one by one. Shadows flood the chamber. As darkness takes you, you hear again the line carved into your memory by green fire and old world smoke. "When the world cracks like a tomb and the heavens drown in souls, the black pyramid shall rise from earth and sky will kneel. In the black between heartbeats, you feel the world beginning to lean toward that crack. You feel the world before you see it. Now a new pressure grinds at the edge of your soul. A wind with no air in it, a weight with no shape. You wake standing. Blackstone rises around you in hard planes and angles, lined with faint violet sigils, you once inked by lamplight beneath Khemri. The air vibrates as Shyish claws at the chamber from every direction. Outside, the wind of death rages like a storm trapped in glass, each impact shuddering through the walls. An obsidian altar waits in the center of the floor. Upon it lies a body, blackened bone and desiccated flesh, wrapped in binding scripts and shards of armor from different ages. Spells not relic to relic until they formed the outline of a man. A circle of silver and crushed bone surrounds the altar. Candles burn at its points, their flames dragged sideways by the invisible gale. Arkhan the Black stands at the head of the dais, more bone and will than flesh. His eyes burn like coals sunk deep in a parchment face. He lifts his staff. Purple-white light blooms at its tip. Words grind from his throat in a rhythm you know by heart. You wrote them once at Nagash's dictation to strip life from a kingdom. Now Arkhan uses them to call his master back. Shyish answers. Veins in the walls blaze. Candle flames flatten along the stone. Pressure settles over you, heavy as a tomb slab. It pushes against your chest, your thoughts, the thin place in your soul where Nagash hooked you. Hold, Arkhan rasps. He is speaking to the pyramid. You feel it resist him. The vast pattern carved into its foundations, straining to drink power down from the sky and cast it outward, not draw the storm inward. If the pattern breaks, all that borrowed death will erupt at once. Arkhan's free hand curls into a fist. The wind buckles. Instead of battering the walls, Shyish rushes into channels cut through stone and soul, pouring toward the circle. Silver smokes. Bone dust rises, spinning into a ring of pale fire. Your tether snaps taut. The ritual hooks every thread tied to Nagash. Fragments of his soul bound to relics, oaths sworn in hidden catacombs, prayers muttered in the dark. All of it is dragged toward the body on the stone. Arkhan reaches for the crown of sorcery. It waits on a low pedestal, a band of jagged iron, blackened by ages of use and treachery. As his fingers close around it, the chamber's hum sharpens to a sting behind your eyes. The crown pushes back, crammed with the ghosts of every mind it has hollowed, whispering promises of power and ruin. With a sound that might be a growl, he forces the crown down onto the corpse's brow. Iron meets bone with a hiss. The whispering spikes into a thin shriek, then cuts off as the artifact's sigils flare and lock into the greater spell. The corpse convulses. Dry hands claw at the air. Grey skin ripples as faint light runs beneath it. Runes crawl across the forehead, sinking into empty sockets and down along the spine. He lifts his staff again. This time, he does not call on the raw wind. He reaches along every bond tied to Nagash. The ritual claws down the tether in your soul. Cold heat surges through you as memories tear loose. Khemri's river at dusk, a corpse drawing its first impossible breath. The long stillness of Arkhan's tomb. You are not emptied, but scraped thin, as if someone had taken a blade to your history. Everything you have seen of Nagash becomes fuel, poured through you into the staff, from staff into the thing on the altar. The world shrinks until there is only black stone and the shape lying on it. Arkhan takes up the staff of power. It hums as if it recognizes the hand. Sickly light crawls along its length, flickering over carved bone and metal caps. As he guides it into the corpse's waiting crib, the air seems to scream. This is the moment the wind remembers, when Nagash first drove it through the Black Pyramid and drank Nehekhara dry. Shyish strains against the binding, pressing at every fault, seeking any path to burst free and scour this height clean. Arkhan does not let go. He rams the staff into the tightening fingers. They close with a crack like breaking stone. The ring of pale fire collapses inward. Power slams into the corpse. Light bursts from seams in the armor, from joints, from beneath the crown. Every rune you ever traced in Nagash's service flares in answer. The screaming stops. Now you hear the drip of frost from the ceiling, the faint crackle of cooling stone. The weight on your chest eases, but the hook in your soul still burns. On the altar, the body rises, not fully, just enough that ribs lift from the slab, that shoulders roll back as if an invisible chain has been hauled tight. Gray, wasted flesh swells, filling into a broad, terrible frame. Armor sinks into bone until there is no seam between them. Then, very slowly, the lids of the hollow sockets peel back. Cold light blooms where eyes should be. Nagash opens his gaze upon the world again. You do not blink. You are not sure you remember how. Light burns in Nagash's sockets, a cold radiance with no warmth in it, the color of Shyish, crushed into a single point. It spills across the inside of his crown, making each jagged spike drip with ghost fire. The candles do not flicker. The pyramid does not groan. Even the crown's whispering has gone silent. The world feels smaller, as if it is struggling to contain the thing that has opened its eyes upon it. Nagash's fingers flex around the staff. Bone creaks, armor settles. The body you watched Arkhan stitch together from relics and scraps now moves with the slow inevitability of a glacier, like the world remembering a pattern it tried to forget. He draws breath. You feel it more than hear it. A tide of pressure rolling across the chamber. The candles shudder. Frost cracks beneath your feet. The hook in your soul tightens so sharply, you gasp, or think you do. Nagash swings his legs from the altar. The obsidian does not groan. The circle of silver and bone around him has collapsed into ash that strains toward him. Afraid to be left outside his shadow, Arkhan kneels. My lord, he says, voice raw, we have brought you back. Nagash looks down at him. The light in his sockets narrows. For a heartbeat, you feel that gaze pass over Arkhan and through him, weighing centuries of service. Then it moves on. It finds you. Distance ceases to matter. The instant his attention rests on you, you are held as firmly as if a hand has closed around your throat. Memory spills open. Khemri's streets, the first moving corpse, Alcadizaar's blade, Arkhan's tomb, Sylvania's dead. Prophecies burning on stolen scrolls, centuries on a tether of undeath. He sees all of it in an instant. You kept the account, Nagash says. You do not hear the words with your ears. They arrive inside you, fully formed, carved into the bone of your understanding. Your soul hook vibrates like a plucked string. Yes, my lord, you answer, though you're not certain any sound leaves your lips. A faint inclination of his crowned head. Not gratitude, acceptance. The way a craftsman accepts that a tool has done what it was forged to do. He turns back to Arkhan. The world, he asks. Arkhan lifts his head. Breaking, he says. Chaos stares at it from the north. The winds rage. The living cower. Your name is feared, forgotten, worshipped and misused. All death flows to Shyish. He gestures upward, and Shyish flows here. Nagash rises. He does not simply stand. He unfolds, drawing himself up until it feels as if the ceiling should crack to make room. Runes ignite along his armor, climbing from greaves to breastplate to crown. The staff in his grasp hums, a low note that makes the stone under your feet tremble. For my absence, he says, the world has grown noisy. The light in his sockets flares. Above you, stone splits. The chamber shakes as vents rip open to the sky. Shyish pours down invisible streams, rivers of pale souls and violet mist, plunging into the black pyramid. You feel the structure around you wake. Veins you once saw as faint lines blaze into roaring channels. The wind of death no longer hurls itself against the walls. It is drawn into the pyramid's angles and planes, folded and crushed and refined. Nagash takes one slow step forward. Enough, he says. We are done cowering under sand. He raises his staff and drives its butt into the floor. The world lurches. First a shiver in the stone, a shift under your feet. Then the tremor grows. Fissures crack along the chamber walls. Dust rains. Below, rock screams as it tears away from the bed of the desert. The black pyramid is moving. Gravity forgets itself. Your stomach rolls as the floor tilts, then rights, then tilts again. Sigils blur as if the geometry of the chamber is being rewritten while you stand inside it. You stagger. Only Nagash stays fixed as Shyish storms around him. Rise, he commands. Stone ruptures in a roar like thunder. For a heartbeat, you glimpse the desert through a jagged seam. Sand churning, tombs cracking, bone collapsing as foundations lift away. The seam widens. Cold air knifes into the chamber as the black pyramid tears free from the earth that has buried it for ages. Chasms yawn around its base. Rivers of sand pour into the void left behind. The entire structure surges upward, a mountain of impossible angles clawing its way into a bruised, storm-lit sky. You are thrown to your knees. Nagash does not fall. He turns toward the widening wound in the wall, watching the desert drop away, as if it were nothing but a painting being rolled up and put aside. Come, Arkhan whispers at your shoulder, steadying you. You will want to see this. You let him pull you to your feet. The three of you stand at the edge of the chamber as the black pyramid climbs, and the world you once thought was all there was shrinks below into something small enough to fit inside Nagash's shadow. You feel the change before you see it. For a long time after Sylvania, the Black Pyramid hangs over Nagash's dominion like a second black moon. Below, dead hosts march and chaos armies break against walls of bone. You watch from high balconies. Then something pulls you west. The tether in your skull jerks, not towards Sylvania's soil, but toward a different power. The wind of life, Kiran, flares in your awareness like a breath dragged into drowning lungs. Nagash feels it too. Enough, he says. This corpse of a land is mine. It will not fall. The others speak of saving the world. Light sharpens in his sockets. Then they will speak to me. The black pyramid moves. It does not rise. It turns. Stone screams as angles shift. Chamber stilled as Shyish roars through new-cut channels. At the broken wall, the view whirls from Sylvania's black forests to the curve of the world. The old world slides beneath you like a map. Storms boil where demons claw at fleets. Through it all, one place calls louder than death, a heavy, choking pulse in the winds. Athel Loren. Even before you see it, you feel it. Kirin thickens the air ahead, like sap pushing back against Shyish. With every heartbeat of leaf and root, the wind of death has found something that does not simply break. The pyramid shudders as it crosses an unseen boundary. Below, an endless canopy spreads around a single vast oak that looks less like a tree than the memory of one. The weave is strong here, Arkhan murmurs. The elves bound a forest in place of a kingdom. Now they will see what becomes of things that refuse to die. The pyramid begins to descend. It comes down like an executioner's blade. Trees snap beneath its shadow. Ancient trunks splinter. Roots tear from the soil with sounds like beasts screaming. When the base meets earth, there is no sharp impact, only a grinding pressure as stone presses living things flat. You stagger. Dust falls in veils. Shyish snarls against the ground, balked by the forest's refusal. Come, Nagash says. He steps through the broken wall, and the forest meets him. Leaves hang motionless in the thick light, but you feel movement anyway. Pressure shifting, sap rising, roots twisting below. To encircle the wound the pyramid has opened. You follow in his shadow. The first thing you feel is hatred. Not the quick hatred of mortals, not even the malice of demons, but something slow and deep. The forest remembers every axe and every fire. Now it feels something older and worse walking on its heart. Grass at the edge of the stone shivers. Tiny flowers turn away as he passes. Roots writhe beneath the moss, reaching up through cracks. They find the thin place where the pyramid's wards end and thrust pale tendrils toward your feet like probing fingers. You're mostly memory and will, but when they brush your form, you feel it like cold mud pressed into a wound. Life, thick and uninvited. You flinch. The roots recoil as if burned. Nagash does not slow. Where his feet touch living ground, the forest dies. There is no flame. Grass becomes grey ash between one step and the next. Moss slumps into powder. Tiny insects drop from leaves like husks. Around him, the weave howls. You feel it in the strain of branches and in the choking weight of Giran. As it tries to flood into the space, his aura empties. Vines lash from nearby trunks, whipping toward him, buds bursting into thorns as they fly. They fall apart before they reach him. Life cannot complete the motion in his presence. Stems crumble to dust midair and drift past like ghosts of things that never quite existed. Deeper in the forest, something vast stirs. A will older than any elf drags more magic into itself and sends it rolling toward the glade as a tide. Giran pours through you, hunting any path to reach him. It smells of wet earth and crushed leaves. It feels like being forced to breathe water. Shyish answers from Nagash, like the inverse of a heartbeat. The two winds slam together. Color drains from leaves near him, flares too bright further out, wavers as the forest rallies. Movement in the shadows. You see them then, shapes between the trees, boughs half-drawn, eyes glinting with witchlight. Slender figures in cloaks the color of bark. Taller shapes behind them, Bark-skinned, crowned with leaves, tree-men, walking fragments of the forest's will. Every arrow is aimed at Nagash. None are loosed. He does not look at them. To him, they are details in the scenery. The true enemy here is the weave itself. He walks toward the center of the glade, toward the place the forest treasures most, every step, a statement of what he intends for the world. Let them watch, Arkhan murmurs. Let them see the choice. Life clinging to a sinking rock, or death reshaped under one will. You feel the forest's answer in the flecks of branches overhead, in the bitter surge of Chiron battering at your tether. And yet, as Nagash reaches the heart of the glade and raises his staff, nothing moves to stop him. Beyond the trees, other powers gather. The forest holds its breath. You feel them before you see them, not as faces, but as weights on the winds. Shyish coils around Nagash like a storm given bones. As he walks to the center of the glade, other powers gather at the edge of his shadow and refuse to be swallowed. The trees have drawn a ring. Branches knit overhead. Trunks lean inward, their hatred focused on the figure killing their roots with every step. Inside that circle, the ground is scarred, half dead from Nagash's aura, half kept alive by a last pulse of Kiran. The Incarnates wait. The first is the storm. Gold and blue armor plates a frame that glows from within. Lightning crawls along the hammer at his side. The air smells of rain and metal. Karl Franz, Sigmar, riding in mortal flesh. The wind of heavens coils about him, crackling. To his left, shadow stands like a man. Malekith is a darker cut in the dim, wreathed in smoke that eats light. Ulgu clings close, blurring his outline. Only his eyes stay fixed. Twin points of intent. Opposite Nagash, the forest concentrates into a woman. Alarielle stands beneath an ancient bough. Flowers break through the soil at her feet and wilt a heartbeat later. Giran pours through her like a river forced into a pipe. You feel its pressure against your teeth. She looks at Nagash with the horror that belongs to living things. The triangle between life, heavens, and death bends the world. The space between them feels thin. You remain in Nagash's shadow. His presence cuts a hollow in the air where Shyish is so dense the other winds will not enter. You hide there because outside it the currents snarl and grind, and your soul is too small to stand in the open. No one speaks. Giran claws at the dead ring beneath Nagash's feet. Azir presses down from above, thunderheads gathering and dissolving. Ulgu smears the edges of everything, testing for cracks. You are standing inside a storm, made of gods. Nagash stops at the center and drives the staff's ferrule into the dirt. The ground smokes. Karl Franz steps forward. Azir pours from him in a tide, pushing color back into the ash. Lightning flickers between hammer and gauntlet. When he speaks, his voice carries echoes. Necromancer, he says, the world dies. We need you to hold the dark, not deepen it. Nagash turns his skull toward him. Shyish thickens between them, pushing out to meet the wind of heavens. The clash tastes like bitten metal and old storms. I am not your need, Nagash says. I am the wall you failed to build. His gaze tracks over the glowing armor, the hammer. The god signs burned into Franz's flesh. You let your god crawl inside you, he says. Do you wear him, or does he wear you? Sigmar makes a poor glove. Lightning answers. A bolt slams into the ground at Nagash's feet, turning soil to black glass. Sound punches through you hard enough that thought blurs. Nagash does not move. If I wished you gone, he says when the echoes fade, you would not have finished that gesture. Malekith's laugh scratches across the glade. If you two are done measuring hammers, he says, stepping forward until smoke and Shyish mingle, perhaps we can discuss not being devoured. Alarielle flinches as Nagash's attention turns fully to her. Kieran surges, trying and failing to throw a green veil over the dead ring. You poison what little endures, she says. Every step you take kills something that was still fighting to live. Nagash considers the brittle grass, the leaning trees, the sweetness of sap. Your garden clings to a sinking rock, he says. You would water it while the roof falls in. He lifts his staff a fraction. Far beyond the forest, screams ripple through the winds. Men and beasts dying as chaos tears them apart. Each death is a thin thread pulled toward him. The dead already outnumber your charges, he says. They listen to me. Chaos will not. You cannot save this world without me. He does not say we. Franz's jaw tightens. Malekith's hands flex. Alarielle curls her fingers as if around a weapon that would snap in his grip. The winds strain and do not break. At last, Franz speaks again. What do you want? He asks. Nagash looks from him to the distant rift where the sky bleeds, then down at the blackened earth under his feet. Obedience, he says. The word lands in the glade like a stone dropped into a full bowl. Kieran recoils. Azir shivers. Ulgu leans closer. I will break those who would unmake this world before I tire of it, he continues. You may stand aside and be swept away, or stand behind me and live long enough to disappoint me later. No one calls it unfair. One by one, the winds bend, not in surrender, but into a crooked alignment. For now, their paths lean the way he is pointing. In Nagash's shadow beside you, the tether in your soul tightens. Whatever gods decide, your rule does not change. You will watch. You will remember. You will stand where he tells you when the world ends. You stand once more within moving stone. The black pyramid glides through a sky that is no longer sky. Clouds hang shredded, stained purple and black, where the realm of chaos presses against the world. Lightning crawls sideways, stars bleed. Ahead, a wound gapes in the firmament. Middenheim, the city of the White Wolf, clings to its mountain. Like a fortress on the back of a dying god, walls ring the plateau, burning in 100 places. Siege towers of brass and bone grind toward the gates. Demons swarm around the cliffs in a sea of claws and wings. Above it all hangs a rent in the heavens, a bruise where reality has thinned. Through that split, you glimpse colors that hurt to look at and hear, screams with no mouths. The Chaos Gate beneath the city claws upward there, trying to pull the world inside out. The pyramid slides into position over the mountain. It doesn't fly so much as decide to be there, forcing gravity to agree. As it settles, it becomes a second peak above the first. A black mirror that blots out a broad slice of the torn sky. Death has brought its own mountain to stand over the last of the Empire. Nagash steps to the broken edge of the viewing chamber. From here, you see the war for the world. Armies churn around Middenheim's base, state troops in battered plate, banners of the White Wolf, and the twin-tailed comet snapping in poisoned wind. Knights ride through mud thick with ash. Cannon smoke drifts in defiant plumes before demonic fire eats it away. Among them march ranks of skeletons in Empire armor, banners of skull and comet side by side. Undead halberdiers hold where mortals have fallen, their movements stiff but steady. Spirits coil over trenches, diving into oncoming beasts like knives of cold glass. On the cliffs, Elves loose arrow after arrow into horned silhouettes. Mages stand in glowing circles, spears of light and shadow stabbing into the dark. It is wrong to see all these colors together. Bone and steel, and green and gold. Chariots rattle beside steam tanks. Bretonnian pennants flutter near necromancer cabals. Living and dead fight shoulder to shoulder, united not by trust, but by a refusal to let this be the last day. Above them all, chaos falls. Demons descend in flocks, brass-armored giants leaving trails of fire, swollen shapes trailing flies, shrieking things made of wings and blades. They hit the walls like a tide, reform from ash when cut apart, surge again. The wind of chaos pours from the rent overhead, thick as oil. Nagash raises his staff. Shyish bursts outward from him, racing through the pyramid's veins. The entire structure answers, lines of ghost fire lighting across every plane. From its edges, a curtain of pale power drops, a dome of death that wraps around the upper city like a shell. Demons that try to cross it unravel, falling as black dust. Mortals beneath flinch but do not die. The magic slides around them like cold breath, hunting only what should not exist. Anchor, Nagash says. The pyramid takes the word as law. It becomes a knot in the frayed weave of the world, fixed above the chaos wound. You feel the strain of it through your tether, like bones set against a collapsing ceiling. On the walls below, Karl Franz stands in a blaze of blue-white. Azir howls around him, lightning striking wherever his hammer falls. Each swing crushes demons back into unformed stuff. Each step drags men and skeletons alike forward in his wake. Further along the battlements, Malekith walks through shadow. Ulgu coils close, dissolving claws that reach for his throat, turning charging brutes into blurred shapes that fall apart when they meet his blade. To your right, Alarielle stands on a tower of living oak grown from the stone itself, hurling what remains of Giran into the streets. Wherever her power touches, wounds close, warriors stagger back to their feet, only to throw themselves once more into the flood. For a moment, watching them, you feel something like hope. Then Nagash speaks again. This cannot be won with swords, he says. You realize he is not speaking to them. He is speaking to you, to Arkhan, to the winds. He turns his back on the battle. The staff carves symbols in the air as he walks deeper into the pyramid. Each stroke leaves a line of cold light that hangs, then sinks into the stone. You follow, the tether dragging you after him like a chained shadow. Behind you, the war for the world rages on, a storm of steel and screams and broken magic. Ahead, Nagash walks toward the place where worlds are closed or broken, and you feel the winds beginning to gather for something worse than any siege. You have stood inside many workings. This one is too large. The Black Pyramid is no longer just a fortress. It is a spell drawn through stone and void. Every corridor and rune, a line in a working that wraps around the chaos wound beneath Middenheim. Nagash walks at its center. You follow him into a hall that did not exist when the pyramid lay buried in sand. The walls lean inward at impossible angles, each plane etched with sigils that drink light. Shyish pours through them in streams, drawn down from the torn sky and up from the battlefields. At the far end, the air is thick as glass, vibrating with trapped sound. The chaos gate below the city pulls there, trying to tear a hole through the floor and into the sky at once. Nagash raises his staff. The vibration changes. Shyish rushes toward him, slamming into the hall from every direction. You feel souls rip away from the battle outside. Men on the walls, demons coming apart under hammer and spell, corpses marching until a second death claims them again. All of it is dragged here. All of it is forced through him. He begins to speak. You do not know the words, only the weight. They grind against your bones and the hook in your soul, scraping away the idea of being anything but an extension of his will. The Black Pyramid vibrates. At first, it is a low thrum in the soles of your feet. Then, it builds. Stone hums. Veins of Shyish blaze so bright, the walls seem to vanish. The whole structure becomes a single instrument bowed to breaking. Pain flares along the link between you and Nagash. You feel what he pulls. Not only death, but the shape of death. The way it wants to scatter into the realm of chaos, like dust on a storm. He is trying to reverse that, to force the wind back into a boundary, to make an ending obey rules again. For a heartbeat, it works. The bruise in the sky over Middenheim tightens. You see it in your mind, the edges of the tear drawing inward, colors bleeding toward the center. Demons howling as the route back to their masters narrows. Souls that would have been devoured instead bend, unwilling, toward the pyramid. Nagash drags all of it closer. You taste dust and lightning and old blood. Every death you have ever seen tries to happen inside your head at once. The pyramid screams. Angles twist, floors buckle. Somewhere above, a corridor rips in half as two impossible directions try to occupy the same space. The sensation makes you stagger as if gravity has forgotten its task. Hold, Arkhan croaks. He is feeding the ritual too, hands raised, staff burning, what remains of his power straining to keep the channels from cracking. Then something else answers. A new color knifes up through the Black Pyramid from below. Sour green, the color of poisoned light. It erupts from lower halls in jagged bolts, punching through wards and sigils you watched Nagash design. The taste of it is metal and rot and gnawing hunger. Warpstone, Skaven. The sabotage does not come as an impact from outside. It blooms in the pyramid's foundations. One by one, the lines of Shyish that held the structure's pattern are cut and replaced with screaming knots of green lightning. The ritual shudders. Shyish slams into the corruption and ricochets. Pathways snap. Currents meant to circle back and clamp the chaos rift instead, whip through the pyramid's guts like lashes, tearing at rooms, at wards, at souls, at you. Your tether to Nagash flares from pain into something beyond it. For a heartbeat, you are everywhere at once. On the walls, as a soldier falls beside a glowing hammer. In the forest, where an elf watches the sky tear. In tunnels far below, where chittering shapes laugh as warp engines burn themselves apart. Then you are falling, not because your body has moved, but because the pyramid's duty as anchor breaks. Gravity forgets itself. The Black Pyramid lurches, floors tilt. The hall buckles as a dozen realities try to decide which way is down. Sigils tear from the walls as raw magic rips along them. Black stone splits, and through the cracks you see the city below, a smear of fire and motion far beneath, suddenly far too close. Nagash's words cut off. For the first time since you met him, the link between what he intends and what the world does slips. The Black Pyramid comes apart. Corners that defined its edges unravel. Chunks of stone shear away, dragging shrieking winds with them. The sections that remain no longer agree on where they are. You and Nagash and Arkhan are flung into motion as the hall ceases to be a hall. The floor rips away. For one instant, you hang in open air. Above you, the torn sky, bleeding chaos. Below you, Middenheim's burning walls, armies locked in a fight, They cannot win without the anchor that is now breaking over them. Between them, falling is you, and falling with you, crown burning, staff clenched in an unbreakable grip, is Nagash. You wake in dust and silence, stone under your back, grit in your teeth. When you look up, there is no ceiling, only a sky torn raw, the chaos rift hanging open like a wound that will not scar. The black pyramid is gone. Where it hung, empty air is veined with fading strands of Shyish and green scars where warp lightning tore through its heart. Obsidian shards fall in slow arcs toward the ruined city. You try to rise. Your soul feels frayed. The tether to Nagash, once a single iron hook, is now a web of thin, burning lines. You follow the pain. He drags himself from the rubble nearby. Armor cracked, runes dark, one shoulder plate sheared away to expose charred bone. The crown sits crooked. The staff in his hand is splintered, leaking sparks of death magic like blood. Yet when he plants that broken staff and forces himself upright, the world notices. Shyish creeps back toward him in hesitant threads. Middenheim lies in ruin, walls shattered, towers broken to stumps. Demons stalk through the ash haze, half-formed shapes, tearing at whatever still moves. At the heart of the ruin, on a platform of fused stone above the Faustschlag, the remaining incarnates stand in a rough circle. Winds coil around them, Azir crackling, Kiran struggling, Hysh flickering, Shamon bright and hard. They are sowing the sky. You feel it in the pull above. The edges of the rift draw inward, threads of magic stitching across the wound. For a heartbeat, you dare to imagine that Nagash's fall has not doomed everything, that the plan can be salvaged. The pyramid gone, but the pattern still working. Nagash feels it too. He turns toward the circle. His steps are uneven, each one leaving a small crater of dead earth, but he moves. Calculation flares along the tether as he begins to reorder the pieces he has left. Then you see him, Mannfred von Carstein. He stands in the shadow of a toppled statue, close enough to join the circle, far enough that no one watches him. Armor scorched, cloak torn, sword dark with old blood. His face is not exultant, not afraid. It is sour. You saw Nagash return and take his hard-won empire with a thought. Shyish clings to him in thin, rebellious tatters. He should be in the circle, lending strength to the working that might save the world. Instead, he stands outside it, gaze flicking between the incarnates and the wounded figure of Nagash climbing through dust. In that glance, you understand. If the ritual succeeds, death will rule what is left. Nagash at the center, Mannfred forever in orbit, another servant in an eternity of obedience. He would rather end the story than accept that role. On the platform, Balthazar Gelt stands near the middle, golden mask tilted to the rift. Shamon wraps him like molten metal, binding the edges of the tear. Teclis shudders under the winds he bears, Hysh and others blazing through his frail frame. Nagash takes another step. The tether strains. You feel his will reaching toward the ritual, ready to seize the pattern and lock it into something he can claim. Mannfred moves first. He crosses the last stretch of ground with the easy speed of a hunter that has already chosen its kill. No war cry, no speech. One heartbeat he is in shadow, the next he is behind Gelt, sword drawn back. You want to shout, no sound comes. You are smoke and pain and broken purpose, and the choice is already made. The blade drives through Gelt's back, no spray of blood, only light. Shamon shrieks as its vessel is pierced, gold flaring white-hot from the wound. The circle staggers. Threads of metal magic snap. The half-closed rift above you tears wide again, swallowing the work like a mouth swallowing a scream. Teclis reaches for the escaping wind. For a heartbeat, he holds it. All the power he bears floods his mortal frame. You feel bone and will and history stretch, and then tear. He vanishes in a flash that leaves Hypnotic howling blind. The winds go wild. Azir lashes at empty sky. Kiran curls in on itself. Shyish, denied its pattern, bucks away from Nagash's grasp, no longer willing to be the tool of a failed design. On the rubble, Nagash stops. He does not roar. He does not curse Mannfred. Though the vampire stands on the platform panting, mask spattered with fading light, eyes wide with vicious satisfaction, Nagash simply stands still. Through the ragged tether, you feel not rage, but adjustment. The equation changed, not because chaos was stronger, not because the tools were weak, but because one petty creature chose oblivion over obedience, spite, that would rather see the board burned than lose the game. On the platform, Tyrion charges. You see the golden blur of Sunfang through the haze. See Mannfred turn too late, arms lifting in a warding gesture. That will not matter. The vampire's scream rips across the torn city and cuts off as golden fire engulfs him. It does not change the shape of the sky. Above, the rift stops shrinking. Then, slowly, it begins to grow. You do not see the moment the world breaks. You feel it. Pressure rolls through your bones. Middenheim shakes itself apart. Streets split, towers shear away and slide from the mountain's flanks, buried in dust and falling fire. Above, the rift swells. What was a wound becomes a hole where the sky has been rubbed out. Colors churn inside it, too bright, too dark, moving without shape. Demons pour from it in a flood, claws and wings, riding a tide of unreality that hisses wherever it touches stone. The winds scream. They are no longer tools, no longer the subtle flavors you felt at Nagash's side. They are raw currents, tearing away from the world that once held them. Azir flees upward. Kiran dives down. Shyish rips sideways, hunting any anchor strong enough to keep it from being swallowed whole. Nagash stands in the midst of it. He is no longer tall. The fall and the failed ritual have taken pieces from him. Armor hangs in broken plates. Runes sear and gutter. One hand clutches the staff like a splint, holding his will in place. But he stands. Demons that brush his aura come apart, dissolving into greasy mist. Chaos surges past him to devour easier prey. You feel his attention measure the rift, the surviving incarnates, the shattered shapes of his own plans. Threads of will stretch out, testing the winds, the flesh still standing, the spells still half-formed. They find nothing that will hold. This world is lost, Nagash says. The ground lurches. Chunks of the city tear free of the mountain and rise toward the rift, like stones thrown upward in slow motion. People and demons slide from them as they tilt, tumbling into the maelstrom. Your form begins to fray. Whatever thin cohesion you had left is shredded by the screaming winds. You feel yourself pulled in every direction at once, toward the rift, toward the grave, toward the memory of a river in Khemri that has not existed for an age. A hand closes around you, not flesh but pressure. Every line that ever tied you to Nagash tightens. Your scattering pieces slam together as if hammered back into a mold. You do not go, Nagash says. The circle where the incarnates stood shatters. The city folds around its wound and begins to pour upward. The sky drops, not down, not up, but away, as the notion of above and below unhooks. Land, sea, clouds peel apart in chunks, drawn toward, or flung from the rift, depending on whose dying spell still clings to them. Through it all, the grip on your soul does not loosen. You understand then that what you thought was a hook was only the visible part of something deeper. Nagash did not just tie you to himself as a convenience. He wrote you into his own pattern. A line of script beside his name. You have watched, he says. His voice is everywhere now. There is no distance, no air. Yet you hear it as clearly as a whisper in your ear. You have counted my failures, my servant's weakness. The places where gods and vermin broke what should have held. You will bring this ledger with me. With him, the world dissolves. Middenheim becomes a smear of light. The rift swallows its own edges. For a moment, there is only raw magic, wind stripped of color and purpose, shredding into nothing. Then even that thins. No sky, no ground, no battle, no desert or sea or forest. Not even darkness, just absence, so complete the idea of having eyes feels foolish. Nagash remains. So do you. You are not a ghost standing beside a lord. You are a line of continuity tied to his existence, a record of a world that failed, and the method by which it failed. Worlds are graves, he says. This one ends. Others wait to be born or broken. Death is the only constant between them. Something moves in the absence. Not shape, not light. Potential. The hint of places that might be. Distant as a thought, not yet formed. You glimpse only a curve of land, hanging in void. A sky full of unfamiliar constellations. Before they flicker out again, Nagash regards that distant maybe future as a builder might inspect a new foundation. You will remind me, he says, when I raise new empires, when lesser beings reach too far, when I am tempted to trust flawed tools. You will whisper where the numbers did not add, where faith cracked the stone, where spite undid necessity. It dawns on you, slow and cold, that your story was never about finding peace, or even about choosing a side. You were made to remember, so he does not have to. The void shifts, far away, or perhaps within your own understanding. Something like a new horizon draws breath. You cannot see it, not yet, but you feel the old patterns humming in Nagash's thoughts, meeting the memory of what you have watched and twisting into something new. You will write, he says. The words are both command and sentence. You feel the first faint tug of direction in the nothing, the beginning of movement toward whatever comes after a world has died. And as you are dragged with him, ledger, witness, unwilling constant, you realize that this ending is only the first page of a story that will be told again and again in worlds that do not yet know the name of Nagash, but will soon, very soon, very, very soon.
The void is vast. Nagash sleeps, wrapping his will around your soul like a shroud of cold iron. You drift in the silence, waiting for the turning of the great wheel, waiting for the first light of the mortal realms. But the silence is not absolute. You hear it at the edge of your perception, a sound that does not belong in the majesty of the end. It is small. It is petty. It is the sound of something refusing to die out of pure spite. Scritch, scritch. A shadow detaches itself from the nothingness. It is not a god. It is not a king. It is a hunched shape, twitching, clutching a staff, that glows with the sickly light of warpstone, the only color left in the dark. It mutters to itself.
Quiet, quiet. Yes. Stupid bone thing sleeps. Stupid man thing's dead. All gone. Thanquol wins. Thanquol is best. They said, Thanquol, you fail. They said, Thanquol, you incompetent fool meat. But who is breathing? Who is whispering in the dark? Not them. Not the lizard things. Not the dwarf things. Just Thanquol. And the horned rat. Yes, yes. The great horned rat sees. He saves his greatest genius. He plucks Thanquol from the fire. Why? Because Thanquol has plans. Oh, such plans.
You watch the creature scurry through the void, a speck of chaos in the order of death. It pauses, looking over its shoulder at the sleeping form of Nagash.
Let him sleep. Let the big hat think he rules. When the new world comes, when the ground is firm again, Thanquol will be there. Thanquol will dig. Thanquol will gnaw. And next time, Thanquol will rule them all.